Doing fine. It's a difficult circumstance. He's making the best of the situation. King called it the law of unintended consequences. So sometimes the more you push a person down, the stronger they get.
I told Mr. Combs I'm going to try and get his case to trial as quickly as possible. He has been ready to defend this case since he first found out about this case. Nothing has changed from his perspective.
You're going to hear about my party. They're going to be shutting them down. They're going to probably be arrested.
Nobody's okay with staying in jail for now.
All of that being said, kind of going back to what potentially the reasoning might be, do you think that it might have been a personal conflict between Diddy and Anthony Rico, or do you think it might have been Anthony Rico with other counsel? But what do you make of all of that?
Potentially, it could be a conflict with the client, right? A disagreement. They just don't get along. The communication is poor. They don't agree on defense strategy. It could be a conflict with one of the other lawyers.
The shocking news broke today. Anthony Rico, one of Diddy's top lawyers, has officially quit just months before the mogul's explosive trial begins. The reason behind his abrupt departure? It's a mystery. Rico is staying silent, but his resignation has left many wondering. Has Diddy lost another battle, or is something far darker unfolding behind?
Obviously, seems like Agnifilo is the lead on this case, although Rico was certainly his 1B. And I know obviously there's other lawyers on the case. Obviously, a lot of the victims are female. They're going to want female lawyers on the defense team, especially during some of the aggressive cross-examination. That tends to be the conventional wisdom when you're dealing with victims who are alleged victims of sexual assault or abuse. And then it could be a conflict with one of the victims themselves. Maybe maybe Rico consulted with them or even represented them in such a way that he has to get off the case. So it could be any number of potential conflicts.
In the scenes, court documents recently revealed disturbing new details that raise eyebrows even higher. It appears that while Diddy has been behind bars, he's been desperately trying to contact witnesses, including those involved in his sex trafficking and racketeering case. But that's not all. His legal team is starting to crumble. And now, even his own lawyers are backing away. With his world falling apart, the big question remains. Will Diddy face a lifetime behind bars, or will he somehow pull off a miraculous escape?
I think it has to be the defense, the consent, because look, sometimes you can argue that the sexual activity never happened, right? It wasn't me, defense. But this is not your typical sexual assault case. There are a lot of people there, right? There are people that are arranging the sex workers. There are people that are setting up lights and cameras, booking hotel rooms. Obviously, Diddy has a large entourage. So there's a lot of witnesses there, and a lot of this was allegedly recorded. So I think it's going to be very difficult to argue that it wasn't me. So you have to argue that it was consensual. And we've talked about the line.
As if things weren't chaotic enough, we learned that Rico's exit won't delay the trial. Diddy still has 5 other attorneys fighting for him, including his lead lawyer, Mark Agnifilo. However, Rico's sudden decision to step down leaves more questions than answers. Court filings state that the lawyer can't serve effectively due to reasons that can't be disclosed, thanks to attorney-client privilege. But could there be more to the story? Was there a breakdown between Diddy and his lawyer, or something even more personal at play?
Sean Combs asked the judge in his federal case to throw out one of the charges. He says he's being targeted because he's a black man and the charge is rooted in racism. I look at Combs' argument and his chances of success. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Sean Diddy Combs wants one of the counts in his federal superseding indictment thrown out. Combs argues he's basically being singled out by federal prosecutors because of his race and his success in business.
Mark Agnifilo, Diddy's lead attorney, is trying to keep things together. He is seen pacing back and forth in a stark modern law office, trying to stay composed amidst the chaos. Mark Agnifilo, to his assistant, "This is the moment we've been preparing for. We can't let one setback derail the entire defense. We'll push forward with what we have."
But basically, the idea is that this was a pretext to search Sean Combs' unit. But the idea here is there was a raid to search for contraband. This is a detention center that has been plagued with violence and drugs and weapons. Okay, so this raid, this sweep, it happens. And this investigator, Investigator 1, apparently took photos of 19 pages of Sean Combs' notes and sent them to a filter team. Now, a filter team is supposed to be an independent, third-party team not connected to the prosecutors that are involved in Combs' actual criminal case. They go through the documents and they make sure there's not anything in there that's attorney-client or work product privileged, okay?
Assistant, nervously. But Mark, with Rico stepping down, how do we proceed without missing a beat? He was supposed to be our ace. Mark Agnifilo, sighing. I know. It's a blow, but we're not new to these kinds of battles. We're going to need to rally together. This case is about more than just Diddy. It's about proving that this is all part of a bigger conspiracy.
So according to the government, a person referred to as Investigator 1 had apparently been monitoring Sean Combs' phone calls and other communications. That's one of the ways that officials learned that Combs was allegedly breaking the jail rules by reportedly doing things like using other inmates' ID numbers or initiating three-way phone calls to potentially contact somebody he wasn't supposed to. But the defense has raised alarm bells when they say that this investigator improperly took photos of privileged notes in Combs' cell and then gave that information to the prosecution, despite the fact that the defense claims the word legal was written on the notepads, meaning there's attorney-client privilege.
Meanwhile, Diddy sits in his cell, reflecting on his spiraling situation. He is seen with a deep frown, staring out of a small barred window, weighed down by the growing legal nightmare. His mind races, plotting his next move. Diddy, thinking, they've been trying to break me for years, but I'm still here. I'll find a way out of this. I have to.
Basically means that the previous charges have been updated and the government have added new details to the case. They've expanded either the charges against someone, which isn't what's happened here, or they have added new detail about the alleged crimes, which is what is happening in this particular case.
So what's new, what's different in this superseding indictment?
There are no new charges against Diddy. Like you said, he's still accused of sex trafficking, of racketeering and transportation for the purposes of prostitution. But what the prosecutors have done is expanded the case with more details. They've added 2 new female victims, and they've also said that the alleged crimes took place over a longer time frame than they'd initially said. It now runs from 2004 to 2024, whereas before it had just been a 16-year time span.
And just when things seem like they can't get worse, a new bombshell drops. Rico's exit was only the beginning. According to federal prosecutors, Diddy's behavior behind bars has only made matters worse. Allegedly, he's been using his phone to make shady calls, breaking jail rules by contacting potential witnesses and attempting to influence the case.
And you mentioned there about adding new victims. That's victim 2 and victim 3 referred to in this indictment. But we already had a victim. We had victim 1. They're still in it?
Yes, that's right. So victim 1 is the case that they built the federal prosecution on.
And they say about these 3 victims, Combs and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise wielded the power of the Combs global enterprise to intimidate.
In an explosive twist, authorities even claim that Diddy has been trying to communicate with female inmates through a peephole. Desperate measures, or just the beginning of a bigger scheme? Either way, it's clear that the pressure is mounting.
Those requests started to become more frequent.
Pines claims many of these parties involved younger women.
A lot of times you'd have him with a younger female. There's a power dynamic there. A more impressionable girl is easier to reel in. Consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations to understand the consent.
Yes. One of the things is, the thing that stuck out to me, you mentioned it before, these allegations are so consistent with what the allegations are that are laid out by prosecutors when they describe the freak-offs in their...
But wait, there's more. The legal pressure on Diddy doesn't end with witness tampering. The prosecution has filed an updated indictment that adds even more victims and extends the timeline of Diddy's alleged criminal activities. What was once a 16-year span has now stretched into 2 decades of alleged exploitation and sex trafficking. The case is bigger, and the stakes have gotten even higher.
When they were coming up with this, when they were drafting the indictment and coming up with the charges, or do you think he's come out after? Because again, I think the timing of the lawsuit's important too, at the end of the year, right now. Talk to me about what you think his role might be.
If I had to guess, I would figure that the feds already talked to him, just because I know from my experience dealing with them how all-encompassing their investigations are. And if he really was his executive assistant from the time frame that they allege in the lawsuit, I can't see a scenario where they wouldn't. I mean, they investigate regular cases to the point that that I'm shocked when I see it as a criminal defense attorney with regular people. When you're talking about a high-profile celebrity case like this, I can't fathom that no one spoke to this individual prior to this. So I would think that, I would think that they did speak to him, and I can't imagine that he's not a witness.
Desiree Smith, Tupac's former girlfriend, has a story to tell. She's sitting in an interview room, her face tense as she recounts her terrifying encounter with Diddy. Desiree Smith, in a calm but shaking voice. It's not just the rumors. There's a woman out there who saw Diddy do things that no one should ever have to witness. She was just trying to make sense of it all when she walked in on him.
The legal troubles continue for Sean Diddy Combs tonight after a judge ordered the music mogul to pay $100 million to a Michigan man who says that he was sexually assaulted by Combs in '97.
According to court documents, Derek Cardello Smith says Combs drugged and then assaulted him during an after party at a Holiday Inn in Detroit. But Combs never responded to the lawsuit in court. On Monday, the judge ordered him to pay $10 million each month starting in October. The victim is currently behind bars serving a 75-year prison sentence for criminal sexual conduct and kidnapping
him with another man. As payback, Diddy assaulted her and threatened her, told her to stay silent or else. The camera zooms in on Desiree's eyes, showing the weight of her words. Desiree Smith. But I can't stay silent anymore. People need to know who he really is. Cut to a darkened alleyway where Christina Coram, Diddy's longtime chief of staff, is meeting in secret with a group of
people are spotlighting this woman right here. This one right here has been called his, I can't read the name. Sorry, I can't say certain keywords, but hopefully you understand why. I'm doing my best. Doing my best, chat. But Sean Diddy Combs once called his Combs Enterprise Chief of Staff, Christina Coram, his right hand. It's a Karam? It's Karam. Source close to the federal investigation believes she is more his manipulator in chief. If anybody is a gatekeeper, Christina would know everything, the source added. High-ranking supervisors were flagged in the three-court federal indictment, charging Combs with all the things we've said. Combs has pleaded not guilty to the charge, but remains in custody. He's now offering a $500 million bail, which was rejected. We'll see if he gets this appeal today.
Government officials, her stoic expression hides the turmoil beneath. Christina Coram, whispering, I've seen things you can't imagine. If Diddy goes down, I'll make sure he takes the fall for everything, but I need protection in return. It's not just me I'm worried about. It's everything I know. Her eyes dart nervously as she continues. Christina Coram, I'll cooperate. But you need to give me something. This could be bigger than just him. As the scandal intensifies, Phil Pine.
I know a lot of people that know him. I met one of his old security guards, and I've been knew the tea about him. Weird shit, liking strap-ons. I met this girl one time that did a photo shoot for him. It's a nice young lady from Canada. And me and her ended up going on vacation together. And a few months later, and she told me something that she saw go down at his house in the Hamptons. And then a few months later, she told me that she went hanging out with like his bodyguard and his entourage, and somebody drugged her and she doesn't know what happened. So none of this is alarming. And then she went back to Canada. So.
And how long ago was this? Was this in the 90s?
This was in the 2000s. Maybe maybe like around 2004, 2006, somewhere around there. He's been doing.
Pines, Diddy's former assistant, has become one of the most talked about witnesses in the case. In an eye-opening documentary, Pines reveals shocking details about what went on behind closed doors during the infamous Wild King nights. Drugs, alcohol, and younger women.
These tapes?
100%.
Will they have to watch it in court? Or like during
100% in court in front of a room of people. And so that's the other thing that's awful. They are going to be watching basically for hours on end in front of people. So in front of victim one, whoever it may be, there's going to be porno played in the federal courtroom.
And victim one would have been made aware of this.
Oh, 100%. She's probably being told right now, like, this is going to be played in open court. Your sex history, your sex life is going to be talked about in open court. All of this.